Hey guys, what's going on? Hey, I want to tell you a story about two brothers, Dan and Dave, who lived in a small village a couple miles away from the nearest water supply. See, every morning the villagers would get up as part of their day, they would go to the nearest water supply, and then they would pack water back to their homes. Well, Dan and Dave decided, you know what? There's a good little business opportunity here. If we make 3 or 4 trips, we could come back and sell the water to the local villagers so that they didn't have to do it themselves. So after a couple weeks of being successful in selling the water, they realized this thing was a lot of work. They had to go up over the mountain to the local water supply and bring back the water and make 3 or 4 trips a day, and it really started to take a toll on their bodies. Well, Dan decided one day that what they needed to do was to build a pipeline to get the water to the locals. They wouldn't have to make the trip, and they'd have a constant water supply that they could sell to the villagers. Well, Dave thought he was absolutely crazy. There was no way that they could build a pipeline up over the mountain and down to the village. It would take months, if not years, to complete that task. Well, Dan was in love with his idea and knew it would work, but Dave wasn't so convinced. So the two separated their ways, and Dave continued to pack water day in and day out, while Dan started building on his pipeline. Well, a couple of years went by, and Dave had built a nice little income. He'd married, had a family, built a nice home, the white picket fence, all the things that everybody really wants in the American dream. All the while, Dave was laboring every day, not getting paid, doing the tireless work to build that pipeline. Well, when the villagers heard that Dan was going to build this pipeline, they all came out to see. And they thought he was absolutely crazy, so they mocked him and laughed and said, "There's no way you can build this pipeline all the way to the village. You're absolutely crazy. Why don't you just pick up the buckets and go back to packing water like your brother Dave? Look at the lifestyle he's created." Well, another year or two went by, and Dave continued to build on his pipeline, or Dan continued to build on his pipeline, and Dave continued to pack water. And Dave got older, and Dan got older, but Dave got more tired and realized that forever he was going to have to pack these buckets of water back and forth to the village because there was no way that he could retire. Well, the day finally came when Dan was able to turn on the spigot of his pipeline and start supplying fresh, clean water to the local villagers. Everyone turned out to see this spectacle and to see his completed project. Now they all cheered, "Dan, you're a genius. We have fresh water. It's not warm, and we can get it whenever we want it." The very people who had mocked Dan when he began building his pipeline. Well, the years went on, and Dan continued to have water flow through the pipeline and decided to build a couple more pipelines and build an unbelievable lifestyle for himself, and had a passive residual income where he didn't even have to show up anymore to pack the water because the pipeline just continually supplied that water to the local villagers. All the while, Dave was still having to pack water back and forth, back and forth. So here's the question, guys. What are you doing today? Are you packing buckets? Are you building a pipeline? Are you building a business or a source of income that's going to pay you day in and day out regardless of what you do? Or have you bought the American dream of having a job, working for somebody else, to pack buckets of water every single day? See, the problem is Dave could only make a certain amount of trips and could only bring back a certain amount of buckets of water, and there was a limited amount of time that Dave could do that, so he had a limited amount of income. When Dan built that pipeline, he opened up himself to the opportunity to be able to have an unlimited supply of water flowing into the village that he could sell without having to go back and forth with those buckets. So just food for thought today, guys. Are you packing a bucket, or are you building a pipeline? Because that's exactly what we're doing. We're building a pipeline with a group of people who are becoming unbelievable leaders and entrepreneurs. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next video.